Let's blend these elements together. It's very simple. In this video, I'm going to be creating this visual out of these elements. This is a breakdown tutorial. If you're ready, let's go. So we have our nice looking background here. So what I did next was to add the floor like stuff on it. Added this floor on it. I cropped this from the background. Just placed it at the bottom. So I just thought the background is looking too bluish. So I decided to mess around with the saturation a little bit. For that, I used my curve adjustment layer. So I added the curves adjustment layer. Let me open the properties of this curve adjustment layer. I use my RGB color to adjust my background to a little reddish kind of color because it was looking too blue for my liking. So I went to the red. I adjusted the red. You can go to green, adjust green. You can go to blue and adjust blue. But in this case, I adjusted only the red, which I increased more. So the next thing I did was to add my hue saturation. I reduced the saturation a little bit and I increased the lightness by 2. Now I added a channel mixer. With the channel mixer, I just brought back the red a little bit more. The whole point of doing all the things is to mix your background and blend them together. Now, the next thing I did after doing this was to add our first tree at the back. Here it is. We added our first tree at the back. Now, looking at this tree, it doesn't really match with this particular shade of green. So what we're going to do, we're going to adjust and blend the tree so it can match with this particular shade of green. Now what I did for that, I added a curves adjustment layer, opened the curves property, and I also adjusted the red part of the curves, I adjusted the green, and I adjusted the blue. Adjusting them in a singular form gives you more control. So I prefer adjusting them in a singular form, or you can easily adjust them in the RGB form. So we can see the before and we can see the after. The next thing I did was to bring in my product. Yes, I brought in my product. Now, if you watch, I roughly traced my product just because I'm in a little bit of a hurry on this tutorial. I roughly traced my product, but while doing yours, take the time to trace your product or any subject you want to add. Take the time to trace it properly so you have a smooth design. So if you're looking at this product now, you would see that the edge on the extreme end, the edge is looking artificial. So what we're going to do to change that, we're going to add a shadow to it. You can see the before, the shadow, and the after gives it more edge. And I'm going to add a shadow to the bottle, to the product in general, just to give it that more cinematic look. So what I did, I created a solid. Then I maxed it to my product. Then if I open this, you would see that there are shadows around the bottle now. Now what I did, I just easily took my brush tool and brush in those shadows. Now looking at the top here, you can see that the background itself is blue. And this whole area in this product is not really looking as if it is, on the particular background. So what we're going to do to change that, we just added like a flare, a light flare to it. This is a light blue flare. Just added that light blue flare to it. The same way I brushed in my shadow, that's the same way I added this light blue flare. And I used an overlay blend mode on it. So the next thing I did was to add more detailed shadow on top the product, not beneath this time. So I added the shadow on top the product. And next I added our second tree. And I did the same curves adjustment for the second tree like I did for the first one to blend it with the background in general. So I looked at this place, it's a little bit empty. This region here is a little bit empty, so I decided to add something like a tree stem or a tree behind it, and I added a shadow to the side of the tree. I brushed in a shadow to the side of the tree. If I do the before and after, you would see the shadows at the side to make it has that authenticity. The shadows weren't looking just alright, so I decided to add more shadows. Here to that. And the next thing I did was to add my fruit. So I added a fruit here, a strawberry fruit, to give it more life. And this behind the project is really not giving me that feel I want. You know, since it's nature, it's sun, you know, or light, you know, on the product. So for that, I decided to add what I call the sun at the back of the product to give me that, you know, that natural feel. Now, I downloaded this online as well. You can see it online. The blend mode is on linear dodge, but if I put the blend mode to normal, you can see what we'll have here. So you can get that online. Let's go back to linear dodge. Yes. So you can see it's looking more natural, more lively. After adding a light effect like this, you have to be careful with the region the light is coming from, the region the light touches, and the region the light is going towards. Now, if you watch this light is just flashed from the back. In that sense, the light should affect this particular region here. So for me to get that region affected, I added that same light flare to my strawberry and my product. So I can take that off so you could see it. Added it there, and I reduced the opacity so it shouldn't be too bright on it because the light is already hiding behind the subject. So yeah. So the next thing I did here, I added a sun, still from that same flare. I added a sun right here, but this time around I just duplicated it, one inside and one outside. The one outside I reduced the opacity to 40, while the one inside is still at 100% opacity. Now the next thing I did, seeing this area, they are too scanty, so I decided to add in my flowers on it to make it look more mature. Then I decided to add a bird. But if you look at the bird really closely, you would see that it's not contrasting with the background. For that, I decided to add an adjustment layer with the blue color on it. So if I put the layer on, you would see that the blue is reflecting on it. I used overlay as the blend mode for that. And that is pretty much how I achieve this particular product design, the nature. If this tutorial was helpful, do well to subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, drop a comment, your questions, we will do well to answer them. Make sure you go back and watch some of my videos because I shaded more light on how I created these glowing effects, you know, that I just added here on most of my videos.